is feeling so much of what Reverend Quick feels, and I would direct that more at this board and our teaching staff. Dr. Penny reports the data, Dr. Hardy just got here. But the reason why this is the same is because of this board and its expectations, because of our regional superintendents and their expectations or lack of, the principals and the teachers. And they say racism, particularly in regards to racial injustice and racial inequity, really robs white people of their humanity. Because the board members of color, black board members on this board, always have to carry this conversation. And the white board members will applaud our teachers and spend more time talking about whether or not schools are having to pay for their own copy paper than to be livid year after year over this. Livid. If this were your students, if this was your community, if this was your organizations, if these were your congregations, you wouldn't stand for it. When you have race-based data like we have had for 15, 20, 30 years, and you have race-neutral conversations, you're gonna get this. Your job as a board member is not to go and get information from your school, sometimes it's to give it. The schools I visited this week and asked about their racial gaps, they didn't know them, because they're not looking at them, because they're not asked to look at them, because they're not encouraged or told to know where your gaps are. If you don't know you have them, you're not doing anything about them. Inside all of the racial subgroups, or all of the different subgroups, whether it's race and ethnicity, gender, free and reduced lunch, students with disabilities, or LEP, within that, there are racial inequities. So at slide 29, when you look at the gender gap, what you will see is that black females have lower proficiency scores. So you're talking about a gender gap within group, but when you look across group, race is gonna trump gender. Race is gonna trump poverty. Race is gonna trump whether or not you have a disability. So for the board members and for the public that says, oh, it's not all about race, you show me one indicator on this presentation and tell me it's not about race. Tell me why we can do better with white students with disabilities than we can black students that don't have them. Why are white students who are poor, and poverty is impactful, it is nothing to minimize. When we talked about the crack baby study a couple of months ago or last year and said that poverty is more impactful on developmental delays than gestational exposure to cocaine. So poverty is impactful, but why does race trump poverty in our educational system? So it doesn't matter if you're a contractor or a second grader. If you're black, you're gonna have a different experience in Guilford County schools. And if that's not being lifted up and paid attention to, we just need to stop having these conversations. So for this board, either you think that black people are so deficient that they can produce racial inequity everywhere they go and everything that they do, or we have a problem in this district. And if we're not gonna address the structural issues here, then let's just admit that and stop playing house. Because that's what we're doing. The underachievement of African American students is abnormal and unacceptable. And I don't want Reverend Quick, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Alexander, or myself to have to carry this water every time, and you sit here and say, we care about all students. And you will spend more time talking about driver's education than you will about the underachievement of black children, unless you want to dole out some charity. And that is wrong. So this board is responsible for these outcomes, and our teachers, and our principals, and our administrators. And until we assume responsibility for that, this is just what we're gonna get. And every time we have one of these reports, this is what we're gonna go through. And it's gonna get worse, and I hope it does. I hope people keep turning up on this board, because people have given us a pass. And we do this, and then everybody goes back, and at the end of the night, we want to thank all of our educators. Well, who's responsible for this? It's not right. And I share in Reverend Quick's frustration that the largest subgroup of students we have in this district, we get so much money on the backs of poor black children, and we use it to finance everybody. White-owned businesses, private schools, teacher salaries, board member stipends. All of us are pimping poverty on the backs of poor black children. And it's hypocritical to get up here and say we care about all children and this is okay year after year. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do? Because if we're not going to do anything, then let's just stop playing house and figure out something else to do.
All right, thank you.